Accurate contact information for the recipients you communicate with is critical for Connect 5 to be successful. If you have been tasked with keeping that information up to date, this video will help you with the following areas: creating a data file, uploading data into Connect 5, and viewing import results. Let's begin. Most clients will begin the data process by exporting a file from their student or staff information system. There are hundreds of these types of systems used by our clients, so we can't go over how to do such an export here. If you need assistance with that, contact customer support for your system. But basically, you will need to run a report or create a query to pull out the following information for the people you wish to contact: first name, last name, ID number, the site they belong to, up to 10 phone numbers, 4 emails, and 4 SMS phone numbers. Other information you may wish to include depends on whether you are a K-12 district, a college or university, or a city or agency. These optional items include home language, grade, status, gender, and any groups you may want to have that are tracked in your information system. Of course, you can also create a file in Excel from scratch with this information if you do not have a centralized database from which to pull. The bare minimum that you must include is last name and at least one contact point, a phone number, email address, or text message number. All other fields are optional, but we strongly recommend including a unique ID number or reference code and at least 2 phone numbers per contact. If your file contains contacts from multiple sites, you will also need to have an institution column. And if it contains multiple contact types, you will need a contact type column as well. Most information systems will let you choose the file type for your export. Choose CSV, delimited, or TXT tab delimited if they are available. XLS format will work too because we can convert that into a CSV in Microsoft Excel later. Here is a typical export file for a school district. When you open a CSV file, all the columns are collapsed to a uniform narrow width. To open them all up so you can see everything, click on the box in the top left corner between the row and column labels to highlight everything. Then place your cursor between any 2 columns until you see that the cursor changes, and double-click. Now you can see that there is 1 row per contact and 1 column for each piece of information you pulled. At the top of each column is a header. You will need to change the headers to match the headers that Connect 5 can recognize. The headers are not case sensitive, but they must not contain any spaces. Some information systems export files with no headers at all. If that's your situation, simply insert a new row at the top by highlighting the first row, right-clicking on it, and choosing Insert. In this file, you can see that we have building, first name, last name, ID, grade, language, several phone numbers, an email, and some group designations. For Connect 5 to process this file, we have to change the headers to the acceptable ones. I will change building to institution. I will take out the space in first name and last name. I will change ID to reference code with no space, and so on. You can download a data guide and sample file which shows all the proper headers below this video if you are viewing it in behind the blackboard, as well as on the import screen itself. One column that may be required for your import that is probably not already there is the contact type column. This is necessary only if your file contains more than 1 contact type, for instance, if it contains students and faculty. If your file only contains 1 contact type, you do not need this column. The available contact types depend on your institution type. If you are a K-12 school district, the contact types are student, admin, faculty, staff, and other. For higher ed institutions, the types are student, faculty, staff, prospect, and other. And for government and corporate institutions, the types are resident, employee, business, and other. Note that the institution column is similar in that if all the contacts in your file are from a single institution, you do not need this column in your file. Only if your file contains contacts from multiple institutions is this column required. Now, what should go in this column is the name of the institution as it appears in Connect 5. For Sample Elementary School, it is called Sample ES Demo in the system, so I need to have Sample ES Demo in my file. If I leave it as elementary school, the contacts will be rejected because that institution is not recognized. So I can do a find and replace to take care of that. Once you have changed the headers and institution names, resave the file. The file name does not matter for import purposes, but you probably want to give it a name that makes sense to you. Also, make sure you pay attention to where you are saving it. An easy place to find it later is your desktop, or you can make a special folder just for Blackboard Connect imports if you want, so you will always know where to look for the file. I will name this file Connect Students and save it in my Connect folder. Make sure that in the Save As Type drop-down, it says CSV, delimited. Note that if you are on a Mac, you will need to select Windows, separated. If you choose separated values under Common Formats, your import will not work. When you save a file as a CSV, Excel gives you one or two warnings. First, if your file has multiple worksheets or tabs, Excel will warn you that saving the file as a CSV only saves the top worksheet. Click OK to accept this. Of course, make sure all of your data is on the top sheet. Second, Excel will warn you that CSV files do not support special formatting like custom column widths, bold fonts, formulas, etc. Click Yes to proceed with saving your file as a CSV. Of course, don't bother to apply any of this formatting since it won't be saved. Now that you've saved the file, you can close it. Despite the fact that you just saved it, Excel will always ask you if you want to save your changes. If you click Save, you'll be given all of those same warnings again. So if you haven't made any changes since the last time you saved, click Don't Save. This will save you time. To upload your file into Connect 5, log into your account and click the Recipients tab at the top. Then click the Import Data button. If you do not see the Import Data button, you do not have the proper user permissions to upload a file, and you will need to contact your account administrator or champion to get your permissions adjusted. The first step on the import screen is to select your file. Click the Select button and browse to where you saved your file, and either double-click on it or single-click on it and click Open. Next, you will need to specify what site the contacts you are uploading belong to. If they belong to multiple sites, you will set this drop-down to All, and remember that you will need to have an institution column in your file. If all the contacts are at the same site, you don't need the institution column because you can specify the site using this drop-down. Next, select the contact type you are uploading. Similarly, if the file contains multiple contact types, you will need to have a contact type column in your file, and you will set this drop-down to All as well. But if your file only contains one contact type, you do not need that column because you can specify the contact type using this drop-down. My file only contains students. The next drop-down, Data Provider, can almost always be skipped because it defaults to Client, and if you are importing a file, you are the provider. We will skip the advanced options for now. My account is empty. It has no contacts in it, so they don't matter for this very first import anyway. Click the orange Import button. You will be prompted to confirm that your file is for the site or sites you selected. Click OK. You will see a green bar at the top of the screen indicating that your file has been received and that you will receive an email when it is finished processing. This email will contain the results of the import. You can also see the results by clicking the Import History link at the top. This will list all the imports ever done into your account. It shows the date of the import, what contact type was imported, what site the contacts were imported for, and the status. If your file is still processing, the status will say processing, but you can reload the page and it will update. When a file has finished processing, there are two possible status results: completed or completed with errors. If you hover over an import, you will see an arrow on the left that you can click to expand for more information. Next to each result is a number, which indicates how many contacts had that result. Note that for many of these results, the number is actually a hyperlink. So if the import was done within the last 5 days, the results are exportable. Inserted means a new contact was added to Connect 5. Updated means the contact already existed in Connect 5, but something about that contact changed, like a phone number or grade level, and so on. Skipped means the contact was already in Connect 5 and no updates were required because nothing changed. Reactivated means the contact had been in Connect 5, was deleted, and was back in the file, so it was reactivated. Deleted applies to contacts that were listed in the file with yes in the terminate column. Warnings can mean several things, and this is what caused our file to complete with errors. Most often, the warning is simply that no primary or attendance phone was specified, so the system is alerting you that it made one of the phone numbers that was provided the primary and attendance phone. There is no reason for concern in this scenario. It is merely an informational warning. Another cause for a warning to appear is an invalid phone or email address. For instance, if you try to upload a phone number that only has 9 digits, or an email address without the @ symbol, those are obviously invalid. The system recognizes this at the time of import and rejects them. The contact itself was not rejected, just the individual phone number or email address. You can export the list of warnings to see what they were and which contacts they belong to. You can see that the error for my contacts was simply the primary phone and attendance phone field not being found. But both were simply remapped to the first available phone. Rejected means the contact was not loaded into Connect 5 at all. This is usually caused by the institution being incorrect, or the contact being a duplicate, or the contact missing a last name. You can export these too, if there are any. The file will tell you the reference code of the rejected contact if one was provided, along with the row they appeared on in your file. We will come back to removed by refresh later because it pertains to one of the advanced options. Since I did my first import into my account, I would expect to see a high number under inserted and a 0 under updated, skipped, deleted, or removed. If I were to do an update, I would expect to see a few inserted, a few updated, and a few removed. At the end of the school year, I'd expect to see all graduating students removed, and at the beginning of the school year, I'd expect to see all incoming students inserted. As a general rule, any contacts that are rejected deserve further investigation to ascertain why and correct it. The export you can get by clicking the number next to rejected will assist you with this. Let's explore the advanced options available when importing a data file. The first one, Remove by Data Provider, can pretty much always be skipped. The next option is important though. Remove contact types not provided in the import file. If you are uploading a full file, meaning everyone you want to be in Connect is in your file, then you should check off the contact types that are in your file. For example, If you are importing a student file, check off only student. If you are importing a faculty file, check off only faculty. If you are importing a student and faculty file, check off both. What this does is delete contacts from Connect who are not in your file. For example, say you have 1,000 students in Connect and 10 left the district. So the file you are now uploading has 990 students in it. In order to have the system automatically delete the 10 kids who are gone, you must check the student box. If you do not check it, those 10 students will stay in Connect 5, even though they're not in your file. On the other hand, though, if you have 1,000 students in Connect and 10 new kids started attending, and your file contains just those 10 kids, do not check the student box. That way, those 10 students will be added to Connect 5 and all the existing contacts will remain untouched. If you did check the box, those 10 new kids would be added, but the other 1,000 would be removed. So the bottom line is, do not check any of these boxes if you are uploading a partial file, but do check them if you are uploading a full file. Furthermore, only check the contact types that are in your file. I said I would come back to the import result removed by refresh. If you have checked one or more boxes in the Remove Contact Types Not Provided option, you may have contacts that have been removed by refresh. I will import another file just like the first one, but with 10 fewer contacts to demonstrate this. So I'll go back to the top and select my file. It's from multiple sites, but they are all students. And I will check off Remove Students Not Provided and click Import. I'll click View Import History, and here is my file processing. I will reload the page. Now that it's finished, I can open up the results. And it's going to tell me here that it skipped 919 contacts because nothing changed for those, but it removed 10. Those were the 10 students that I deleted from the file. Since I did not add a primary phone and attendance phone column, I still have the same warnings, but again, they're simply informational. The next advanced option when uploading says Update Provided Columns Only. This is only applicable if your file has reference codes in it. So if you do not have reference codes, you can skip this section. Also, if your file contains all possible headers, then checking preserved data will not make any difference either. But if you do have reference codes and you do not have every possible column in your file, then you need to decide whether you want to check preserved data or not. If any of your contacts already loaded into Connect 5 have information in fields that are not included in your file, you should check preserved data. That way, only the fields in your file will be updated, and the fields that are not in your file will be left alone. Here's an example. All of my contacts in Connect 5 have one email address. I want to add a second email. I can upload a file with simply institution, reference code, and email address alt, and check Preserve Data. The second email address will be added to each contact, and their phones and first email address will not be touched. If I hadn't checked Preserve Data, then their phones and first email would have been erased, so they would only have the second email address in my upload file. Now let's say only half the contacts have email addresses. If I upload a file with reference code and institution and an email address column, all the email addresses in the system will be overwritten by what I'm uploading. Checking preserved data does not keep existing ones from being changed. Remember, preserved data only applies to columns that aren't in your file. Since the file has an email column, the system is going to take what's in that column and apply it to each contact, regardless of whether they already had something in that field in Connect. It's important to understand the difference between Remove Contact Types Not Provided and Preserve Data. Checking preserved data does not impact whether a contact remains or is removed. It only affects whether information about those contacts is updated or not. Also, note that preserved data does not apply to group membership. The last advanced option pertains to refresh groups. This feature is intended mainly for use with data automations. So if you are manually importing a data file, as a general rule, do not check this box. Here is a brief explanation of the refresh groups feature. Regular Connect group associations persist, even if the members are not listed as belonging to those groups in every single upload. Checking refresh groups does not affect regular group membership at all, but membership in refresh groups is dependent upon the contact being listed as belonging to that refresh group in every single upload. If the contact is not listed as belonging to a refresh group, and the refresh groups option is checked, they will be removed from that group. This can help keep your groups accurate from day to day, but if used improperly can result in people being removed from groups they should belong to. So again, as a general rule, when doing a manual import, do not check refresh groups. Let's review. The file formats Connect can process are CSV comma delimited and TXT tab delimited files. The headers in your file must be the exact headers Connect recognizes. They are not case sensitive, but they are space sensitive. To upload a file, go to the Recipients tab and click Import Data. Browse for your file, select the site and contact type if your file contains only one, or select All if your file contains multiple. Check one or more boxes under Remove Contact Types Not Provided only if you are uploading a full file, and only for the contact types that are in your file. Check Preserve Data if your file contains only a few columns so that the fields not included are preserved as they are in Connect. And do not check refresh groups when doing a manual upload. After importing, you will get an email with the results, and you can review the results online and even export them for uploads done in the past 5 days. Contacts that are rejected are not added to Connect at all. Warnings are triggered when a phone number or email address is invalid or no primary phone or attendance phone column is found. You should always investigate rejected records, while warnings are not as critical. If you have any questions regarding data, please contact Client Care at the phone number or email address on your screen.